Welcome back to Crit and Crit. I'm Scint,
I'm Axion.
and we are continuing our discussion of the Metamorphosis while we play through Hollow Knight. Last time we talked about just the role of money and stress in the narrative and how that's far, far too relatable these days. But we're going to touch on something that's probably a little more obvious to the whole falling into a pit of lava, smoke, whatever that is, situation, which is the role of the mind and the body. Because this kind of comes up a lot in any sort of media where your perspective character undergoes a transformation, which is literally the title of this piece and the conceit that kicks everything off.
So, Gregor begins the story by changing from... I almost said presumably. Changing from a human into a giant insect. This is obviously never fully explained. It's just a thing that happened. Why with the acid?
But yeah, Gregor turns into a giant insect and seems to be okay. Well, okay as anyone can be in that situation for a little while. He is able to, with some concerted effort, still make himself able to communicate with his family for at least the first part of the story. Enough to convince them to not come into the room because he doesn't want them to see him like this. He doesn't want them to worry. He doesn't want any problems, even though I think turning into a giant bug is the definition of a problem.
He does not want to be a burden.
Yep. So, yeah, Gregor starts off with just trying to pretend everything is normal, trying to behave as he normally would, but his new body will not let him fall back on any of his mannerisms. He can't sleep in the way he normally does, so he has a hard time getting back to sleep. He can barely communicate, and he obviously can't go into work. So his normal lifestyle is no longer an option. Greta, his sister, begins taking over caretaker duties for him because someone has to, and he can't eat like he used to. He can't stand the taste of unspoiled food, so he has to wait for everything to rot in the trash before he can actually eat it. So, Kafka doesn't really go into detail about Gregor having a problem with that, but I think most people would have some degree of psychological hang-up and problem with the idea of, I'm literally eating garbage. This has gone off, it is getting growth on it, and why does that make me want it more? Gregor just goes for it. This could be a sign that he's already just adapting to his new form, which, okay, probably better than not, but it kind of does mark just, he's already so different that his family's bound to notice, how can you not? And he's slipping more and more away from what he was. There's also the rearranging of his room. His sister, with the best of intentions in mind, wants him to be more comfortable, starts moving all the furniture out of his room so he has more room to skitter around and basically make it a giant bug cave so he can be comfortable and happy. Mm-hmm. And we do know in the narration that Gregor is at first okay with this and then realizes, but then if no furniture or anything to make him feel human, he's going to stop feeling human. But at that point, he has lost the ability to communicate. So he can't tell her, no, leave my stuff, I want it, I need to stay, I need to keep thinking like me. So it's removed, except for the couch he likes to scuttle underneath because he's a giant bug and he wants to hide away from people. So Gregor explicitly knows that, like, without anything to tie him to humanity, he's not going to retain that humanity. And this is, of course, humanity all in the head. He has already lost all form of physical humanity because he is, again, a giant cockroach.
Right.
So, yeah. No one except his sister and mother actually treat him like a person. His mother barely so, because she can't stand to be in the same room with him. His sister's not doing much better, though she tries her best for most of the story until she finally hits her breaking point. But everyone else who sees him, except maybe the charwoman who they hire to help out with some things around the house, just treats him like garbage. When the boarders eventually see him, they freak out and threaten to sue the family. And yeah, I mean, I kind of think most people, if you were renting an apartment and there was a giant bug the size of a human, I would probably have some stern words for my landlord too. I mean, because like it's not like anybody explained, oh no, this is not actually a bug, this is our invalid son who can't help it. If all I knew was giant bug ew, I would not be thrilled.
Yep.
But yeah,
that's not an unreasonable reaction from those guys, I don't think.
Yeah. So knowing what we do from Gregor's perspective, it is completely unfair. But with their limited information, it's a lot more understandable. But this is also to note when Gregor basically gives up, because this is the part where Greta breaks, says it would just be better if he was gone, we need to get rid of him, and Gregor, not wanting to be a burden, gives up on life and just dies. He just lets himself die.
Yep.
Wastes away, doesn't take food, no one wants me around, so I have willed that I will no longer try to be alive. Which, ouch.
Yep. Okay, seriously, where am I supposed to go from here? Okay, I can go down and then left.
And it's interesting because his family did try to make sure that he had some connection to them. Like, they left his door open most of the day so he could hear them, he could be kind of there at mealtimes, even if he couldn't come out to join them. But they gradually go more and more away from that, whether just due to forgetting about him because he doesn't talk to them, he's barely there, or just growing more and more tired of putting up with the entire situation. Gregor becomes more and more insect-like as his family takes away any semblance he had left of his connection with humanity. And what can you do? Like, humanity, by its nature, is social. I say this even as an introvert. I prefer to be on my own, but I do kind of notice that I am very off if I go too long without human interaction. Like, even preferring to have time on my own, I do need social interaction to not lose my mind. I can't imagine Gregor's situation. The isolation would probably drive anyone insane. We've already touched on how isolation and being helpless and alone is a thing with a lot of Kafka's work. But when you are unable to even rely on your own body to tell you who and what you are, that's got to be horrifying, and you could probably start talking a fair bit about dysphoria as a result of it. Like, something happens, you are no longer you in a sense that you understand yourself, and without assistance to understand that or any sort of sympathy to your situation, what does that do to you?
Yep.
In Gregor's case, it's no longer worth being alive.
Yep. And there it is. I need to figure out... Wait, can I shoot this thing up? Nope.
And I wonder how the story would have gone differently if his family had been able to help him, had been able to take care of him. Because for Kafka, I don't think Gregor becoming human again was ever in the cards. Because It's never explained, and it doesn't need to be, because the point of the story is basically, as soon as you stop being useful to some people, sometimes including family, you might as well just be an insect ground beneath their heel for all they care about you. Gregor didn't need to turn back. Gregor was there to tell the message of how cruel people can be when the world doesn't encourage you to care about others. So maybe he would have held on to his humanity a little longer. Maybe he could have found some way to communicate something to them, even if it was just a very rudimentary yes/no, skitter left for yes and right for no situation. It could have been something, but that would have required his family to inconvenience themselves enough to try. And only his sister was willing to do anything resembling that.
And on the note of his sister, maybe if her... I mean, let's for the time being, let's take her mom's situation at face value, and she is just of too nervous disposition, too whatever, to be helpful, and that is not something that can be fixed. That is a medical condition on her part. We'll just take that one at face value. If Gregor's father, instead of being the grouchy basically, I want you all to forget Gregor ever existed and stop treating him like a person, and I don't like that you're dealing with him and all that, and instead had helped. Okay, that does not go through walls. Rats. Oh, I missed it. It's back this way. How much more would Greta been able to do, and how much longer would she have been able to keep working with Gregor if she hadn't been doing it alone? If his father hadn't been constantly acting like he was a burden and a problem? If he had helped? Yeah, it's not all one person's fault, but of the three of them, he was certainly the least helpful.
The real burden was the parent we figure we made along the way. I don't know.
I don't either. But my point being, so much of this stress on both Gregor and Greta comes more or less at the fault of the father basically doing nothing. And sure, he eventually... Oh, that's not creepy at all.
It's fine. Yeah, he only actually starts to do something to help his family when he's literally forced to, because, well, his son that he'd been kind of relying on to do it for him while he sat in the chair and was sad, well, he couldn't anymore because he physically couldn't. So, yeah, the fact that his father was so quickly able to find work when he needed it makes me have very, very little sympathy for his situation.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and I do want to note also, Greta, as you mentioned, but the end of the story is basically the family noticing how much she has grown up, that she's become a fine, beautiful young lady who's ready to start looking for a husband, where she was a child before, so the ordeal has matured her, and maybe she looks more physically mature because having to be sole caretaker for Gregor mentally matured her. It's hard to say. She's not given a whole lot of focus in terms of perspective and such, and we don't get a whole lot of thorough description, just oh yes, she's all grown up now. So they both have their own transformation, one far more traumatic than the other, but there is something to be said about how your experiences shape your mental scape and also shape your physical health.
And see, I read that completely differently. I read that as, oh, she's grown up. We can marry her off and have a new caretaker and breadwinner.
Oh, I'm not saying that's wrong either. Both can be true. Like, I think the author had intended it in terms of, like, the situations mirror each other and she has matured and grown. But I could absolutely see her father saying, yes, another chance to live on the couch.
Yeah, I didn't get anything benign at all out of that line. It came across to me completely as the parents going, oh, we just noticed she's kind of grown up now. She's old enough to marry. Let's marry her off, and we can have someone else who can support us.
I can absolutely see that interpretation. But Yeah, I'm kind of running out of steam in terms of how the mind and body affect each other. I think we
kind
touched on a
of
fair bit of
derailed
it.
a bit.
But yeah, so I'm good with calling this episode here.
Yep. And we're getting about done with Metamorphosis, so
I think we have one more episode in the can, and we will get to that anon.
yep. See you next time.